Automobilista 2 is slaying right now. And not only in terms of new cars or new laser scan tracks, no, there has also been a lot of progress when it comes to the game's physics and force feedback lately. But to find the right settings, heck even just the right preset, is sometimes more than tricky. But what if I told you that one single file could change your AMS2 experience forever? How to get that up and running, I'll show you right after the intro. Welcome back to Overtake.gg. My name is Champion Joe and today we'll talk force feedback. Automobilista 2 has improved quite drastically over the last couple of months, especially with their version 1.3 update that brought a completely overhauled physics and force feedback calculation to the table. If you are still skeptical whether you should give it a try, you can check out my video in the top right where I listed 10 reasons why you should start playing right now. But anyhow, with the update, AMS2 got treated to a new force feedback profile called Default Plus and is now being recalculated from scratch. And even though this preset already has plenty of fans, in my opinion there's still a better way to get a force feedback in AMS2 just right. Introducing custom force feedback files, or in other words custom text files from the community that have tweaked this default profile to be even better. How to install those and where you can find them I'll tell you in just a second, but I know that force feedback is a highly subjective matter and everybody watching this will have a different opinion on how the perfect FFB should feel like. Not to mention that every one of us has a completely different setup, from wheelbases to rims to cockpits, which is why I will show you what I'm racing with and what I can recommend for my system, as well as teaching an easy method to find the right slider settings no matter what you're racing with. But for now, let's start with the installation process and where you can find the files. The source of wisdom we seek for custom force feedback files is the official Automobilista 2 forum by Riser itself. You can find a link to that in the description below. From there, navigate to Automobilista 2 General Discussion and click on Automobilista 2 Custom Force Feedback Overview and Recommendations. Here you can find everything you'll ever need to custom tune your AMS2 FFB. But of course we'll start from the top, where we will discover one of, if not the best custom force feedback file right away. On the top of the page, 1. The Silver Raw I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, but trust me guys, it's awesome. Just forget the name, let's call it Silver Raw from here on out. Click on the direct link over here and it will download the newest version to your downloads directory. Now we need to open an Explorer tab, navigate to your Documents folder, Automobilista 2, and here we can find already the FFB_custom_settings file. Copy its name and then delete it. Yes, you heard it right. Afterwards, go to your downloads directory, select the Silver Raw file and give it the name you just copied. Now all that's left for us to do is to drag and drop it into the AMS2 folder in your documents. And done. In the game menu, we now only have to switch the force feedback mode from default or default plus to custom. And from there on, it will work with your game. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And in the forum you can even find more files from creative modders out there. So if you're not sold on Silver Raw after we have set it up in just a second, you can come back to the forum and try out some more. Okay, but now we still have to set up the sliders. A tricky task as there's no real explanation in-game that tells us what the sliders actually do. So let's go over them real quick and I'll show you an easy method how to set up the sliders. Alright, let's go over all the settings and everything that's important for setting up the force feedback just right. I'm driving with a CSL Elite, so if you have one of those, feel lucky because you can just copy my settings. So we head to the options and go to controls over here and then force feedback, and there you can already see the different profiles. Default Plus is really great, but I prefer the custom one. And we are setting up Silver Raw, and in the newest version it's like 5.0.3 or something like that. But don't quote me on that. As you can see, nothing is dialed in just yet. It's only the gain at 100%. So let's start from a clean slate. And this is what you also should do if you want to set it up fitting to your hardware at home. Maybe not go for a gain at 100%, but like 50%. which isn't too strong for any wheelbase out there. So these are good settings to get started. Afterwards, we head back to the race menu and then we go to time trial mode, which is important because in time trial mode, fuel and tire wear are non-issue and the car feels the same every lap. And afterwards, what's important is to first select a circuit that is quite bumpy. Watkins Glen is already a good solution on that, but for now we'll take Oulton Park. The more bumps, the better here. And afterwards, what you should do is take a car you feel comfortable with. You're driving a lot and that you like a lot. Maybe you have to change the circuit depending on what you're choosing, because, for example, I like the Formula V10 Gen 2 the most. Maybe not the best car for Oulton Park Classic, but we'll do that anyways, because it's so fun to drive. Okay, so let's get started. First, we want to adjust the gain, which is basically the overall weight that is transferred to the wheel. We start on 50%, but if we want to change stuff, we can always go to Options, Controls, Force Feedback, and change stuff around, which is really handy that we don't have to close the game all the time. So let's start with 50% gain and drive half a lap. And of course, also consume some of that V10 magic. Ah, that sounded so awesome. So for now, I feel that it's really light. It's a light force feedback at the moment, especially in a Formula car where downforce is produced like it is nothing. So I already can tell you it's too light. So let's get back to the menu, Options, Controls, Force Feedback, and go up like 10 to 60 and see how that feels like. Yeah, that's already better. Oh, okay. So the classic layout is like driving just in a straight line. So I feel the gain is alright now. Maybe a little bit more would be helpful to feel how much grip there is in the corners. Feel that a little bit better. So maybe let's go up another 10 steps to 70. Another test. And yeah, that's the sweet spot, I guess. Feels really convincing. But there are some informations missing right now, which is why we move on to the next slider. That is the low force boost. So what's the low force boost? Every time your car loads up in a corner, the force feedback will get stronger. That's something that's pretty normal and how force feedback should work like. But if you are using a wheelbase like Logitech G29 or something like that, that isn't that powerful and the dynamic range of forces is not that great, then maybe in parts where there isn't a lot of load on the wheel, you don't have any feedback at all. Like when driving in a straight line or driving with really slow speeds through slow corners. So in that case, you want the low force boost to give you in those low force areas some more weight. So if you're driving with a direct drive wheelbase, maybe between 1 and 30% is already enough. I'm on a belt-driven system, which is why the recommendation is higher, but I like it not as high. But also here, if you want to set it up for your wheelbase correctly, start with something low like 10. And if that isn't enough, go to 20, test out that, go to 30, go to 40, and so far and so on. My sweet spot is 25 or 30. Let's test it out. Let's go with 20 first and then check out 30 if I can feel a difference. So like the next corner is a perfect example because it's a really slow one. But the amount of force there is enough to feel how much grip my front tires have there. Next example is here on the straight. How much feedback is there? More than enough that the car's not feeling too crazy. So I like 20 already a lot. Maybe it could be a little more. Maybe it could be a little more. So let's test out 30 and see if that suits me. And that's also what you guys should do at home. Just go on those bit by bit steps and test out what feels best for you, starting with all on 0 and then move from slider to slider. Yeah, I guess that feels even better. Giving a little bit more weight in the corners. Maybe not the best track for this car. Crazy how fast those cars were back then. They could even take out some traction control to be even faster out of the corner. Okay, so but let's move on to the other sliders, but you get my idea of increasing the slider bit by bit and finding the sweet spot like that. So the next one is the FX slider. What does it do? So this one determines how strong you can feel bumps, uneven road surfaces, curbs and stuff like that. So this is pretty much the most individual slider there is, because it's not like what is necessary to feel the car's grip, but what feels authentic for you in terms of having bumps in the track and feeling the curb rumbling and stuff like that. If you are driving in a motion rig or something with haptic feedback, this is your friend. So I like the effect very much, and my sweet spot for the CSL Elite is also 30. But test it out for yourself and see what suits you best. Before we move on with damping, let's go to menu spring strength next. Really unimportant, it's just the strength of the wheel when we are in the menu. I like to have it on 40. Not really that important because it's nothing that interferes with the driving itself. It's just how strong the spring is in the menu. And the last one is damping, which is a tricky one. So usually damping is like the bounciness of the car over uneven road surfaces. So how bouncy do you want it compared to feeling how much grip there is on the tire? It's giving you another level of realism. And a good value for this is always 30, no matter what wheelbase you're going with. 30 is a perfect value to select here. The thing is, we are using Silver Raw at the moment, and Silver Raw has changed damping to something else. Damping is fixed on 30 with Silver Raw, so we can't change it any longer. The damping slider is now actually power steering, and that's exactly what you are thinking about right now. It's like power steering in a car. So if you are boosting the power steering up to like 100, the steering will get really light because the electronics are basically helping you steer the car. So there is still some feedback, but it's really light. And what you can feel now is the low force boost kicking in, and it feels really weird. So have a go with that as well. Check out what suits you. My setting for the power steering is 20. And there you have it. Those are my settings for the CSL Elite, but keep in mind that the gain especially is something that you have to maybe adjust from car to car, or you can go just with 70 and adjust for feedback output on your wheel if that's possible with, for example, Fanatic gear like I have. And if you want to check if the custom force feedback file is even working, you can select the HUD where you can see the telemetry data stuff, and have a look at the bottom left. There you can see what custom force feedback file is actually being read, and there you can read it. It's not saying Silver Raw, unfortunately. But thanks to Carsten, to Shadok and Panos for making this awesome force feedback file and making AMIS 2 even greater than it already is. Now your force feedback will be perfect, or at least I hope so. Maybe we can discuss in the comments what you guys are doing out there to further enhance your experience in AMIS 2. If you have any tips and tricks or other good custom force feedback files, let me know in the comments. And if you need more sim racing action, go and check out Overtake.gg. Here on YouTube you can continue watching with my tutorial on how to install mods for AMIS 2 in the top right. But that's it from me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time around. Cheers!